Welcome, everyone, to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Living the Integral Heart, the 7-week journey to access your heart's full intelligence to find radical happiness, deepen your relationships, and live a life of purpose and passion. I'm Lisa Bonis, and it's my honor to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Terry Patten and address questions about his upcoming video course, Living the Integral Heart, which begins Thursday, June 14th. Later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions, but first, I want to introduce our guest. Terry Patten is a philosopher, activist, consultant, coach, teacher, and social entrepreneur. He's the author of the important best-selling book, A New Republic of the Heart, an ethos for revolutionaries, as well as Integral Life Practice, which he co-wrote with Ken Wilber and a core team at the Integral Institute. As a teacher, he created the acclaimed online courses, Integral Spiritual Practice, Living the Integral Heart, the Integral Soul Work Journey, and Awakening Your Revolutionary Heart. He is also the founder of Beyond Awakening teleseminar series and Bay Area Integral. As a social entrepreneur, he founded the pioneering consciousness technology company, Tools for Exploration, led the team at the HeartMath Institute that developed their first heart rate variability monitor, and co-leads initiatives in restorative redwood forestry, fossil fuel alternatives, and transforming collective trauma. In just a few minutes, we're going to chat with Terry about his work, but first, I would like to bring him on. Welcome, Terry. I understand you'd like to begin our time together by leading us in an opening practice. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Well, this topic, living one's integral heart, is a profound matter. And in a way, for us to really talk about what we're intending to talk about, it's important for us to make a transition, to step across a threshold from our kind of rattled, busy stuff coming at us every minute kind of pace of life into sacred space and sacred time. So if you'd be so kind as to open up and in the spirit of beginner's mind, kind of knowing that there may be among the many familiar things I might be saying, somehow that you can be touched freshly in this moment. And take a couple of deep breaths and lengthen your spine, perhaps close your eyes, and settle and open and relax. And bring your attention to the center of your chest, to your heart. And breathe as if you're breathing to and from your heart. And notice that even if it might seem that your attention is originating behind your eyes, that perhaps that center in the head is a little like the brightness of the full moon, that there might be a sun at the center of your being that's even deeper. And so just let your attention rest there in the heart as you're breathing to and from the heart. And let yourself notice and feel everything that sustains you. Notice that there is something about life that is just inherently okay and good, something you can trust. And let go into trusting and noticing the inherent okayness of existence. Not merely okay, in fact, but even one moment of this conscious embodied existence, this moment, is such a blessing. Breathing to and from the heart and noticing the infinite depth of this moment. Noticing that if we were 100% present, 100% conscious, no matter how we bring all of ourselves forward into this moment, the profundity of now is even deeper. It's so deep, we can never plumb its depth. It's infinitely deep. This moment, this. Every moment disappearing and every new moment reappearing. And this profundity is a mystery. That's why Zen teachers talk about don't know mind, letting go of the knowing orientation, not presuming to be a knower, and just arriving, awake and feeling and receptive. And noticing the qualities like wonder and gratitude and care and generosity and courage are native to the heart. The heart as a center of intelligence in your system. And so breathing to and from the heart, letting every cell in your body be bathed by the qualities of conscious light that are pulsing upum, upum, upum from the heart every moment. Letting yourself rest in that mystery of life, in that mystery of your existence. Let's come back in and speak from the heart and to the heart, listening with the ear of the heart, and have a conversation about what really matters. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, Terry. That was beautiful. So we have the rest of our time together to dive into questions for Terry as we prepare for his upcoming course. Again, that's called Living the Integral Heart, which begins Thursday, June 14th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit integralheartcourse.com to see the full description. So, Terry, let me ask you, I've heard you say that the heart has 3 dimensions, the physical, subtle, and causal domains. And if that's the case, what exactly does the heart of your heart mean?
Well, the heart of your heart is poetic language that comes from the Sufi tradition. Hindu tradition sometimes talks about these 3 hearts, and particularly my teacher really elaborated this most fully. The physical heart, which the Institute of Heart Math really speaks about, Heart Math, the work I did at Heart Math and the work that Heart Math continues to do, doesn't distinguish between these 3 hearts. It just notices that when we bring our attention to the heart and they orient it toward the physical heart, there are qualities of intelligence that are just relaxed. Like when the mind is panicked, the heart is not panicked. The heart is often able to put us back in touch with our essential okayness. It's one of the reasons it's such a potent way of releasing us from stress patterns. The heart of the heart is a way of talking about the very, very deepest, very most tender, very most wise center of the center of things. Sufis also talk about listening with the ear of the heart. So the heart of your heart, in a sense, goes beyond the sentimental and the ways that we refer to the heart are, they reflect where we're at. And we can talk about the heart in ways that are, well, a little superficial to its ultimate profundity. The heart on the right, the causal heart, is associated with the sinoatrial node. It's the place where the heartbeat originates. And one of the miracles of the heart is that it does not get told to beat by the nervous system. There's no part of the brain or part of the nervous system that tells the heart to beat. The heart is the place that the heartbeat begins. In fact, even if the heart of any animal is dissected, the sinoatrial node cells will just keep signaling the beat, even beyond the life of the creature itself. The heartbeat is just intrinsic to this part of the being. And the esoteric traditions say that that's where consciousness enters in. It's like the sun, that the seat of consciousness in the being. So the very heart of the heart is even more profound than the feelings or intuitions of any given moment. It is the presence of consciousness itself. That's what that refers to.
Okay, thank you. Wow. So do the three integral faces of God that you talk about correlate to the three domains of the heart? And if not, how are they related?
Well, they're two different trinities, actually. The gross and the subtle and the causal hearts have to do with these three domains of existence that are talked about pretty universally in the esoteric traditions of the great spiritual traditions. The idea being essentially that this physical universe is profoundly related to the unmanifest. It's coming into being and dissolving back into the unmanifest mystery of existence. What is it, 10,000 times every mind moment, I think the traditions say. And essentially the idea is that it comes through all these layers of subtlety that correspond, for instance, to the seven chakras, and then back up to the highest point of subtlety, and then into a tacit, causal essence, which is right at the edge of the mystery itself, of the unmanifest. And so that great tradition, it just helps us put us in touch with what it is that is giving rise to our experience moment to moment. Because clearly, when you really begin to grow, you notice that the qualities of your relationship to experience actually work as a magnet, attract or repel experiences that we do or don't want. That in some sense, this is a psychophysical realm. And very often, the science of working with the subtleties that bring forth our experience is related to through our beliefs, and related to sometimes through a real yogic attention to these subtle energies and chakra dimensions. But the most profound level of it is the causal level, the level of consciousness itself we were just talking about. So that's what those three levels are about, the gross, the subtle, and the causal. But there's another way of working with spirituality that I've used a lot, which has to do with, the divine itself, the mystery itself, that which is the fundamental of all things, that which is beyond words. God is beyond all perspectives. And whatever we would say about it would fall short, because it is a deeper mystery, a more profound reality. It can't be summarized by any of the perspectives that human beings take on it. And yet we're people, and people are, in a sense, perspective-taking by nature. And so we take perspectives on that which is beyond all perspectives. And those perspectives kind of organize themselves into three broad categories that correspond to our pronouns. The pronoun I has to do with the quality of spirituality that is sometimes referred to as the I am, the I amness, or the capital S self. And that's the root of awareness, the very profound, most profound center of our subjective awareness is this I amness. This is also what's referred to by teachers who talk about the now, just like my opening meditation. We go to the very heart of the now, or we go to the heart of the essence of what it is to be our I amness. And what we're locating is this mystery beyond perspectives, but I'm experiencing it as the essence of my own consciousness, the essence of my own self. But we also have profound spiritual experiences, particularly looking at the divine in third person, like gazing upon the beauty of nature. and having a sensory experience of the way the divine manifests itself through this entire beautiful living earth. Or when we engage in philosophy, like all these little distinctions I'm making, these philosophical distinctions, are a way of noticing the patterns that connect our experience. And we're sort of contemplating that also as an object of our experience. I'm looking at it in nature, or I'm looking at it philosophically in a more intuitive way. And so that's third person, like that pronoun, it. I look upon it, and I become more intimate with the mystery through that. But then, of course, there's also the second person pronoun, you. And in a way, this mystery that's beyond all things is also our most intimate friend, the one who was with you before your parents were born, the one who was with you in the womb, the one who has been with you through every important moment in your childhood, the one who has witnessed you even in the moments when you've tried to hide from yourself, the one who will be there all throughout the rest of your life, and even on the other side of the tunnel into which you will slide as you leave this life in your dying process. That one can be faced and spoken to. And this is very different than the kind of rote prayers to a mythic God, the second person relationship to God, when we've developed beyond imagining the divine as that bearded guy on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, this mythic character. When we recognize the divine to be the very essence of all things, but also that divinity can be also turned to as our most intimate beloved. I can shift right now. I can speak to the one who's beating my heart, the one who is sparking the consciousness that is even thinking these thoughts, the one who is the very heart of this moment. And I can say thank you and feel deep gratitude. I can also say, wow, what a wonder this life is. I can say, yes, I will respond to the sacredness that you are in a way that co-creates your glory here in this place. And I can say, please help give me the presence of mind and heart, give me the courage, give me the clarity, give me the discernment, give me all the qualities that will enable me to be present to you as you would want me to. And of course, I would always want to return to that disposition of gratitude at the end of that connection to that second person. So these three forms of spirituality, awakening as the I amness, speaking or feeling my way into communion with the divine as my most intimate beloved, or beholding the amazing, wondrous qualities of existence as an object of my contemplation. All of those are really valid forms of mysticism, but they're different. And so I named this. Ken Wilber noticed these distinctions. I elaborated on them, and I gave this the name, the three faces of God. Because in some sense, these are the three faces of that which is beyond all perspectives and even more profound than any of his, her faces. So those are the two different distinctions. And we can go into a gross or subtle or causal relationship to the first or second or third person of the divine. People who are all into that kind of theory will notice that that creates 9 possibilities and so forth. But that's not what I emphasize. I mean, all of this is available to our feeling and our intuition. We don't have to get complicated about it. In some sense, these distinctions are only useful when they liberate us to be more fully alive and fully feeling and fully able to be love in relation to our lives. And That's how I use them.
Wow, thank you. That was beautiful. I was just so sucked in by what you were saying. Wow. Well, let me give just a quick station identification here. If you're just joining us, we're here with Terry Patten, learning about his upcoming course, Living the Integral Heart, which begins Thursday, June 14th. And you can log on to integralheartcourse.com for all the details and to register. So let's get back to our conversation. I really love how you talk about the heart being a portal into the deeper intuition and oneness with the divine. I love that idea. And are you referring to the physical heart literally or symbolically? And can you go into that whole portal concept just a little bit?
Yeah, well, the portal is, I perhaps used the word poetically. It's not like a technical word that I use, but the core idea really is that, that the heart is a center of intelligence in the human system. And really this is scientifically validated in the sense that there is a field called neurocardiology that actually studies the brain in the heart, the collection of the concentration of neurons that are in the region of the body around the heart. There's also another field called neuroenterology that studies the collection and concentration of neural activity around the gut. And there is a kind of gut level knowing, street savvy, that has to do with will and what we want and power and getting what we want. It's kind of instinctive. But as Candace Pert wrote about in her amazing book, Molecules of Emotion, there's neurons floating around throughout our whole system. The whole body is a conscious organism. And it is all through the body that we have intelligence. And in fact, we need the total knowingness and intelligence of the whole human system. But where does that integrate? That integrates at the very center of the being. It integrates at the heart. So I talk about integral heart intelligence in order to talk about where and how we can integrate all of this. And it is there that there's an intuitive capacity that is able to be really humbly respectful of the profoundly important computational and abstract reasoning that we do with our minds, our observation and crunching of data. That's it. That is in the head, and that there's a lot more neurons in the brain in the head than there are anywhere else. But there are actually faculties that precede the mind. Sometimes our knowingness and our recognition of things arises from the heart or even from the gut to the brain. The brain is sometimes receiving information from elsewhere. We're in a moment right now in life on this planet that is challenging us all. We're facing questions and stress that are really beyond nobody has all the answers to that. We need our very best intelligence. And so it's crucially important that we find our way to our integral intelligence, the intelligence of the whole being. And paradoxically, that's at the heart. So I don't teach people to move from the head to the heart. I help people learn how to discover the depths and domains of knowingness that arise from this center. And in that sense, you might say it's a portal to the deepest wisdom and intelligence and intuitive knowing of the whole being. So that's kind of what I'm talking about there.
Okay, thank you. Well, I've also heard you say that understanding the source of your wisdom is at the heart, is the core to living a guided life. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. One of the things that we've noticed is, and I think everybody can recognize this, there are extremely, extremely mentally intelligent people who can be, well, kind of dumb about ordinary life things. Common sense doesn't necessarily come with academic, scholarly knowledge. It's actually kind of easy to fool the brain. The mind is good at working with complexity, but sometimes what's important is what is essential. And the mind isn't always able to keep track of the fact that certain things are really essential and other things are more superficial. And so complexity can fool the brain easily. So we need other kinds of knowing, the kind of knowing that we get from the gut and from the heart. But we need to integrate that, because we do have an incredibly complex world. We need to be able to analyze and discern and use our discriminative intelligence. So it's not as if we want to reject the mind's not knowing either. We need to integrate it all. And the integration of it all, that's the faculty that is most important. And that's what I'm talking about at the heart. So really, in a way, the point is practicing. The point is learning to consult the knowing of the heart, learning to develop the capacities of care and appreciation and love and joy and freedom that are felt intuitively at the heart. You know, having this knowledge just as abstract knowing isn't going to get us anywhere. What we really want is to combine ourselves with it so that it arrives in a feeling way, so that some part of it is our very nature. And that's what I try to help people find their way to. That's the kind of operational wisdom that we're talking about. And so the practicing of one's heart intelligence gets us there. So that's what it's about.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, we have plenty of time left for more questions, but before we continue the conversation, I want to give a few details about the course. Again, it's called Living the Integral Heart, and this is going to be a really powerful 7-week journey under Terry's expert guidance, where you'll gain access to your natural innocence and sincerely live your truth out loud and activate your higher intuition. And the 7-week course takes place on Thursdays at noon Pacific, starting Thursday, June 14th. And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, if for any reason you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings. You will receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind you that the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until June 28th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. Also, as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Living the Integral Heart bonus collection. First, you'll receive an audio dialogue with Terry Patten and Jean Houston entitled The Evolution of Your Soul's Purpose. Next, you'll get an audio dialogue with Terry Patten and Tim Kelly called Integrating Voices That Get in the Way. And finally, you'll receive an audio dialogue with Terry and Andrew Harvey entitled Renewal and Resistance, the Practice of Sacred Activism. So, Terry, before we get back into our conversation, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, there are a number of things. This course is a really alive introduction to the essence of what I think is true spirituality. I think that we're in a world in which there are many useful truths being shared, and yet very often they distract us from what's at the very center of things. And so the heart, is at the center, and yet the heart is the depth of things. So in a way, what I'm excited about is that there are simple practices that, instead of being practices that you do, you begin to integrate as a life of practice, so that really you begin to recognize that every moment of life is practice. So I'm especially excited to share this heart orientation to existence, so that it can become a moment-to-moment orientation and an orientation to life as practice, so that we can do practices that build our capacity, but more and more let them be a moment of life, so that we can be practicing in the morning when we wake up. We can be doing it in random moments. We can understand our mission in life, our purpose in life, in a way that brings us alive. We can engage our projects as a gift to the greater wholeness, and we can also do them in partnership with this greater grace, so that we are, in a sense, communing with that larger mystery even as we do things, and we engage our lives so that we are being transformed by what we do. So for all of that to integrate, and for it to integrate also with our other practices, our fitness and our, psychotherapy and our, mental education and our work and our citizenship as citizens of a world that is right now in a particularly intense tipping point in which it really needs our best. For all of that to come together in a single integrated understanding can really make a huge difference. Many of my students in the past have told me that this marked an enormous transformation and shift in their lives. Before things had seemed a little confused and they were mostly feeling like they were seeking. And after the course, they really began to feel like they were rooted in this more sacred relationship to experience, and we're practicing that. So they've moved from being a seeker to being a practitioner. And that's really what excites me the most, is helping people make that profound transition in their lives.
Awesome, thanks. So is that what inspired you to write your new book? It's called A New Republic of the Heart. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, all of that, certainly, that's my whole relationship to life and experience. And I've been teaching practice now for 15 years, ever since I joined with Integral Institute and became a part of that team and brought an integral approach to practice. But there's something else going on, which is that this is a critical tipping point, as I was alluding to just a minute ago. The ecological predicament on the planet is at a critical place, and the levels of stress and the fragmentation of our social fabric is also reaching critical stress points. And there are a whole variety of other crises, financial and economic crises of various kinds. The ecological predicament, it includes the climate crisis, but it's even much, much bigger. Conditions of our oceans. All of these things are at a tipping point. And, there is nobody else who's in charge. Each of us, in some sense, has an opportunity and a responsibility to be part of the profound whole systems change that our world so deeply needs. And I felt it was important to integrate the deepest understandings of those of us who've given our lives to spiritual practice and who really understand the inner spiritual and psychological work that it takes to become a whole person, to the point where becoming a whole individual bridges over, and we begin to understand how to become citizens of a new kind of wholeness, which is called on now to reassert itself in this time when there's a crisis of fragmentation. And so this is why I called it A New Republic of the Heart. What is it for us to take up our citizenship, expressing and communicating and bringing into being the health and wholeness and coherence and integrity that are so under siege in this key moment? So that's why I dived for several years into the process of writing this book. Thanks for asking.
Well, thanks for sharing. I'm looking forward to reading it. Now, I've also heard you talk about feeling intelligence, that it's the domain of the heart, sort of like what intellectual intelligence is the domain of the brain. So does that mean that feeling intelligence is another form of intuition?
Feeling intelligence is both a form of intuition. It's also a form of enjoyment and generosity. One of the things that I write in that book is things are far too serious for us to lose our sense of humor. In a way, our capacity to enjoy, our capacity to savor and really live this life, we're not dead yet. And no matter how messed up our world might seem, we're not going to bring wholeness to it in a grim, anxious, woe is me, everything is wrong kind of a disposition. The heart is a source of feeling intelligence, and the feeling being naturally wants to feel good, not only like to avoid bad feeling, but just magnifies the essential thing that is at the heart of a healthy relationship to the miracle of existence. So our feeling intelligence, in a way, is like when I understand something abstractly and merely mentally, it's arrived to some degree as a truth that I can begin to live by. But when it arrives in the very cells of my body so that the whole being knows it, then it's an embodied feeling intelligence. And so taking some of these profundities that seem very abstract and esoteric and getting them to actually reside in the feeling being, that's really what I'm referring to when I talk about feeling intelligence. And that's one of the things that are, really at the center of what I think is valuable and necessary for true spiritual practice or even any kind of personal growth.
Okay, thank you. And I agree. A sense of humor it's so important, especially these days. So you studied and integrated multiple spiritual paths and lineages, but some people think that concentrating on one path, like one body of teachings that's consistent, cohesive, and comprehensive, is the ideal way to deepen your spiritual journey, as opposed to piecing together a path of your own making. Can you address that?
Sure. Well, I kind of agree with that. There's this old saying, don't drill many shallow holes, drill one deep hole, and you'll strike water, and it'll be fruitful. And so there is a kind of consumerist relationship to spiritual practice where people don't actually end up becoming accountable and go really deep. On the other hand, we're living in a world in which the complexity of life is such that we can also lose out. We can find our way through to a single commitment and be involved in that spiritual path exclusively. And actually, almost every path we're discovering has, although some of them are incredibly profound, they also have their karmas, their sometimes pathologies, sometimes ways of being partial. And so I think that you can embrace a path, but it's important to bring an embodied integral understanding to your way of relating to that path, so that even though you may devote yourself to one lineage and one teacher and one school, you don't do so with blinders on, so that the limitations of that school or teacher don't become your limitations in a critical way. We're in a time in which all of human civilization's deepest wisdom traditions are in conversation with one another and with a rational, scientific, evidence-based kind of reasoning, all at the same time. And it's crazy not to benefit from all that. That's why an integral approach to spiritual practice seems to me to be so important. That doesn't mean that we have to scatter ourselves across lots and lots of different practices and become a dilettante. It just means that we bring a kind of wisdom with a comprehensive view to whatever we do. So I think a lot of my students who have worked very deeply with me, some for many years, have also remained students of a particular tradition. They might be, many of them are Buddhists, many of them are Christians, various traditions, Jews and Hindus. We're no longer in a world in which it's even healthy. The dynamics of cultism apply often when people exclusively focus on a single approach with a single teacher. So this is I think we need to, we need to have a kind of humility about all of these things. There's this $6 world, epistemic humility. And what that means is epistemology and ontology are two fields of philosophy. Ontology is what is real, and epistemology is how do we know anything. Epistemic humility is knowing that however you think you know something, it's not final. You get that you're curious then, able to be a student of what you don't see. So I think if we can drop into a kind of humility, we find ourselves in a healthy relationship. We can become profoundly knowing of many things, and still there's enough of this humility or beginner's mind, or don't know mind, that we can keep learning, and we can see everyone around us as our teachers. A heart is able to encompass that and not just become weak. You know, part of the trick here is to be able to have some heft and gravitas at the same time that we have a light-hearted and curious innocence. And that's what life is asking of us now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Wow. Well, this has just been a lovely conversation. Once again, Living the Integral Heart starts Thursday, June 14th. And again, you can visit integralheartcourse.com to learn more or to register. So before we wrap up, Terry, do you have any final words for our viewers?
Well, I want to invite you to join me for this. I've taught this course, Living the Integral Heart, twice before. This is the first time I'm getting a chance to do it in video. So in some sense, you might be more connected to me through this, even if you've taken this course before. I think that it will give me a chance to transmit to you the essence of my teachings about the heart and heart practice. They certainly do go deeper. There are other longer courses and deeper coaching and so forth that I do with people. But this will give you a chance to feel in your own experience some of the core teachings that are that I believe are at the center of how to be true, you know, wisdom, the fundamental virtues, beauty, truth, goodness, love, freedom, joy. What's at the center of things, which is just so important in this time. I mean, it's the all hands on deck moment. We are in a crisis of, wow, just inconceivable proportions and urgency. And how do we find sanity in the midst of that? How do we be true in the midst of that? Well, I think I can communicate some things that are really useful, that will make a difference, that will be lasting. So I invite you to join me for this, and I hope that you will. That's my final words.
Thank you, Terry. I've truly enjoyed our chat today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Me too.
You bet. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.